This is Breaking Down Security, and I am Brian Brake. Welcome back, listener. This is Brian, and Mr. Boettcher is back for Breaking Down Security.
I'm back, baby.
Nice.
Just for a little while, though.
Yeah, that's true. You went on a week for what, that DFIR conference, and then the SANS course, and you're back for 4 days after a short week, and then you're going to take another week off. What's that like over in Happy Town? What's that like?
Well, I hope it'll be relaxing because the SANS thing that I went to was pretty intense.
How say you? How could it be intense? It's a SANS course, right?
Yeah, I mean they're all intense. I mean they pack a lot of info in there. I mean I wouldn't be surprised if we went over 100 different tools.
Oh, really?
Here's this tool for this. Here's this tool for that. I mean it was crazy. I wish I had a day off in between each day that I could go over the material and kind of let it soak in. And then go to the second day because it kind of builds on it itself, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty intense.
Who was your instructor?
Mike Pilkington.
Pilkington. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll get him on to discuss SANS courses or something in the near future. So let me ask you a question. Maybe this is something that they explained in the middle of the talk. Why does it seem like digital forensics and incident response fit together? Because it seems like everything is DFIR, digital forensics, incident response. Is there a time? Obviously, there's a time when you do incident response and don't necessarily need digital forensics. Why would you need necessarily to have digital forensics with incident response?
Well, that's an interesting question because I think SANS kind of merges the two together. You respond to an incident and therefore you got to do forensics. It's what it seems like to me. So the class is called, I took the advanced digital forensics and incident response. Mm-hmm. I kind of skipped over the Windows forensics class and went to the more advanced one.
Okay.
And yeah, I just decided, just crap my pants and jump in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Might as well.
Yeah.
It was very technical, very deep course. I don't recommend it unless you're doing that already, or if you are a very technical person, yeah, you can probably do it, and computers really well.
Yeah,
it was pretty intense, but I got through it. And back to your question, though, I think there is a gap there in the SANS courses, and maybe there's a course. I haven't gone over all of the SANS courses, but maybe there's something where my definition of incident response is really taught. Maybe it's incident handling or something like that. But I think there's a gap in the SANS training between that phone call or, oh crap, we've been breached, and you're loading hard drives in sealed bags, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Somewhere in between that is what I call incident response. And then past that is forensics. After you get the hard drives, right? You make copies and you start forensically analyzing them. I think that's their definition of incident response forensics. What do you do in between?
Yeah, well, I mean that's
oh crap, we're infected or we have a breach, and okay, call the forensics guys.
Well, that's more like that's what your policies at work would set up, the roles and situations, and who your incident commander is, who's going to be the liaison. If there's media going to be involved, you need to get your marketing people to put the spin on it because that's what they're good at. I think that's a lot of policy, and I think that would be like their SANS management courses. I'm sure there's a SANS management course on how to handle or be an incident commander, and a lot of that stuff is, I don't want to say trial and error, but it's like, when you're doing incident response like what you're wanting, the next thing after the incident has passed is you're doing lessons learned to see what worked and what didn't in the incident response, that that you need to fix.
Oh, well,
the manager
you're
kept
talking
poking
about
its head.
after the fact?
Yeah, the lessons learned, the after effects, what did we learn? We had the manager kept poking his head in too much. Maybe we need to have somebody who's constantly liaising with him to make sure that he's not, hindering the investigation or hindering, incident response. Our communications were garbled because of this. Okay, we need to invest in better, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, with regard to incident response, I think that's probably more of a management and a policy thing less than a technical thing. You're not going to necessarily use tools for that other than a phone call or an email or a web conference or something like that. So, and then you're going to get to the hard drives in the plastic bags that you're going to crack open and look at with your chain of custody and whatever. So,
yeah. Well, I believe incident response is where, oh crap, this system's infected or we have a potential breach. It's 90% of incident response is preparation. It's all about that prep, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, once you get breached, it's too late for incident response almost, right? It's like, okay, we have an incident. Let's do everything we can to contain that incident. That's incident response.
Mm-hmm.
Not loading hard drives in bags and forensically analyzing things after the fact. So what we did in the course was we took a memory image and a disk image and kind of analyzed what happened to the system.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout the course I was saying to myself, well, you don't need to do that. It's in the logs. It's in the logs, right? It should be all these process executions and WMI and all this crap. It should be logged.
Mm-hmm.
I think SANS is about 5 years behind when it comes to logging, right?
Okay.
With Windows 7 and Windows 10, with their process execution logging, geez, it just, all the stuff that happened on the system practically from your logs.
Yeah.
All right. So that's, in my view, incident response right there is the preparation to where there is an incident, you can respond as quickly as possible and get all the data you need to figure out what happened, who's infected, and how do I contain this incident.
So
right?
what you're wanting to talk about, or what you're thinking incident response is before the incident actually happens.
Well, it's the preparation for the incident, and then once an incident happens, containing that incident, right? Containing and remediation. How do I, get Bob back to work?
Yeah.
Right? I don't confiscate his computer, right? I clean up the mess and get him back to work so the company can start making money again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think their idea of incident response is maybe more along the lines of law enforcement, Like I have a perpetrator who could have child porn on his system. Yeah, he doesn't do proper logging, but I can get what he did
mm-hmm.
by analyzing his hard drive.
Yeah.
That kind of response. Yeah, I can see that. There's a need for that. But in the corporate world, we don't have to do most of that because we have logging.
Yeah.
Right? We have preparation. We can prepare for a potential incident.
Well, I mean, the tools that you learned in class were for the incident portion, right? Like, how do you analyze memory? How do you analyze the hard drives? You're doing
I don't think it's part of the incident. I think it's after the incident occurred.
Yeah, that would be after the incident. Yeah, but I mean,
if you could stop time,
mm-hmm.
If you could shut the company down and take all the computers and do a memory dump and a hard drive copy,
mm-hmm.
that's forensics. But in the real in the corporate world, you can't shut the company down to do that.
Well, I
You
mean,
have to keep things going.
depending on your architecture, as long as you're not using physical boxes, and to be honest, it's becoming less and less of a problem, shutting down the environment. A lot of, virtualware, VMware and AWS, you can clone an instance pretty quickly and continue on. And then get your artifacts and everything that way. And I mean, we could probably find somebody who does cloud-based forensics. That would be something we could discuss in a later podcast about how they do forensics in cloud-based environments, which I'd find quite interesting because my company does quite a bit of work in the cloud.
So everybody's workstation or laptop is in the cloud?
Yes, yes, that is a physical box. You are correct. I was thinking more along the lines of servers, but yeah, I mean, so you think that their methods of incident response are behind the times? You said about 5 years in the past.
Yeah, I mean, with Windows logging.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, has really changed over the last few years, and for the better.
Yeah.
Right. And not by default. You have to actually go in there and set the right things.
Yeah.
PowerShell. You talked about it last week.
That's
Hackers
right.
are using PowerShell out the wazoo, right? They don't hit disk. But
it's true.
But fortunately, that crap is logged.
Yeah.
Right? You just got to know how to set the right PowerShell logs.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very interesting conversation with Adam and Tyler last week from InGuardians.
Yeah. And they use Mimikatz. They mentioned Mimikatz, right, to harvest the password. Hey, that's another reason everybody should be moving to Windows 10. Mimikatz is completely and totally useless with Windows 10. Yeah.
How come?
If you're using Windows 7, you can get passwords out of memory, but Windows 10 you cannot.
Does Windows 10 not store the passwords in memory?
Correctamundo.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty good. Okay. And that was one of the big things. That's why Mimikatz was created, So,
yeah.
So that was one of the tools you learned how to use was Mimikatz, I assume?
Well, no, we didn't use it, but, yeah, actually, yes. See, it was like fire hose drinking, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Just crazy, like all SANS courses are, right?
Yeah.
Since it was free, I participated in Net Wars. That was a lot of fun.
How'd you do?
I did really, really well for the first 2 hours.
Oh.
Okay. I used pretty much everything I learned in the course that I could retain.
Mm-hmm.
I used in that first 2 hours, and I was in 6th place. And then that was it. That was the extent of my forensics knowledge up to that point. And I hit a wall, couldn't go any further. And yeah.
Yeah.
So it was funny. I just got the email yesterday to say, here's how you did on the Net Wars, and it had the topics and everything. And for this topic you got 100%. For this topic you got 100%. For this topic you got 0. For this topic, you got 100%. So the topics that I knew, I did really well on, and the topics that I didn't, of course, I couldn't do them. So it was awesome the way they did it. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, you got to know your stuff.
Now the Net Wars, is that the thing with the different systems like SCADA systems and all that, or is that something else? I was trying.
Well, they give you. For this one, they gave us a memory and a hard drive image, and we had to answer a bunch of questions, like when did Bob do this, or how often, what was the name of the so and so, or what was the IP address that Bob went to. You got to answer those questions.
Okay.
Based on the images that you get, not pictures, but
yeah,
hard drive and memory images. Yeah.
Oh, right on. Okay. So I don't want to keep going back to this, but so you are talking about the way you're doing incident response, would that be like incident response controls? I'm trying to figure out a term for something, because you're like, you want to set up stuff to how your system will respond during an incident response.
How
So
your
these are like,
company will respond to an incident.
yeah.
And
So there's
the preparation of it. So it's done as quickly and efficiently as you can.
yeah. So your incident controls, you have, that sounds like a lot of policies. Like, here's how, we deal with, malware infection. Here's how we deal with botnets. Here's what happens. And this would be like part of your system documentation. So, your mail server, if your mail server was infected, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Or,
Yeah.
So a lot of it is, policy, training. So your incident controls, which would be the things that you would implement in the event of an incident, are well established. You're going to prepare for those things. Okay.
Right. Like you said, the policies and the procedures need to be in place before an incident occurs. And like they say, if you're not infected, you will be, or if you haven't had a breach, you will, or you may have one already. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So preparation is key, right? So you need to figure out how best your company would be able, based on the personnel, to handle an incident and prepare for it.
Yeah.
That's why the logging is key. I mean, we did this thing in forensics, log to timeline or whatever, or super timeline, where you take the memory and the image and you create this giant timeline spreadsheet. Right. And it reminded me of LogMD, because LogMD just harvests the log and puts it in a spreadsheet. Right?
Okay.
Exactly the same thing. And it was kind of cool to do that. And they've got some great techniques. There's so many programs that you have, and they give you a Linux distro called Sift, and they put all those tools on it. And so what's interesting is there's Python scripts that they built to help you run all those tools, because nobody can remember, what was the flag for this type of thing. Well, they put the mainly used ones the well-used ones for forensics in the Python script. So you run the Python scripts and it grabs the particular tools and does a bunch of things for you. It's a lot of info, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Sift
cool
is
stuff, the things you can get out of memory. I mean, you can get commands that hackers run, right? You can get their passwords, just like Mimikatz.
Yeah. So, I mean, Sift is like what the Kali of
forensics.
DFIR. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that's another podcast we can do for another day. So, was that the main tool that you guys used during the week? You just used Sift with all the programs inside of it, or was there other tools that they hooked up with?
Sift with all the bells and whistles. They used a couple of other tools, like Redline was another one.
Okay.
Volatility was on the on the thing itself. So yeah. A lot of different things that I have to study, because I'm going to try to get certified, right? I'm going to try to be a lethal forensicator, or whatever they call it.
Nice. How did they give you ideas on how to be, training for that while you're, having to wait the 3 months before you can take the exam?
Oh, I'm sure it's like all their exams, right? You've been through it. I've been through it. So just study the material. You got a couple practice tests. It's all good there. So
you're going to run down to like the Salvation Army and grab some old computers with the hard drives in them and do some forensicating on them?
That's exactly right.
There you go. Get on eBay and buy some hard drives. Well, that may not be a good idea. I've heard some bad things about that. But, I mean, I guess the Salvation Army, I guess you could end up the same thing. So, cool. All right. So,
it was interesting, though. Last week you talked about the guys from InGuardians using malware to infiltrate a network. That's how it's done, man.
Well,
they give themselves a back door, because that's the easiest thing, right? Yep. It works 100% of the time. And then they go from there, man. They just go to town.
Yeah, and I think talking to Adam and Tyler, of course, they the idea is they want to give their clients, and I don't know, it probably sounds like freaking Guardians commercial, but it's they want to
for
make
any pen tester, right?
Well, yeah, for any pen tester, they want to make sure, one, that because of the reputation of their company, they're wanting to make sure that they are giving as real a pen test as possible. I mean, if you walk up in there and you're just running Nmap and whatever, anybody can do that. As you and I have seen with previous companies where we might or may not have worked, the pen testers that we had come in from one of the big four probably wasn't some of the best that we've ever seen, looking back on it now. We have people that we know that are far better. And, they like to, they being the Adam and Tyler and the folks over there, they like to mimic as bad guy as possible, because that's, those are the people going after you. It's not the white hats. So,
do they get to keep the credit card numbers that they harvest?
Heck no, man. Heck no. They don't, they were telling me all about the, how they have to make sure that when they're doing the exfil, you heard in the podcast, they create false flags. So they create false credit cards. They create, false documentation. And if you can get to that documentation and push it out the door, you're still, not
right. They don't want to exfil real data to their CNC, even if it is encrypted. I mean, they don't want it to hit the internet and something happen to it. Yeah, I get
exactly.
it. But it's a simulation, right? The whole thing's a simulation. So yeah, why not simulate the real keys to the kingdom?
Yeah, you sure as heck don't want to push, PCI data or HIPAA out to a email or anything like that, or send it back to your home network, because then you don't want to cause a violation of the stuff that you're trying to help the company you're testing do. So I thought that was a great discussion. The NISO that they're using. Truly, PowerShell is fantastic. I mean, I can't believe it's taken us in the InfoSec community as long as it has to start, getting it to the level of maturity with regard to tools. So, that was a great podcast last week. Oh, speaking of last week, I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but I did say that the CTF for our, I don't know, say 15 or so people who are trying out for the CTF. It was going to go out July 1st. I figured because of the holiday, there might be people who weren't listening, and I didn't want to make an unlevel playing field. So that's why, if you're still wanting our DerbyCon tickets, the final leg of our CTF will go out on the 11th of July. I don't know what time, but I'm going to send the email out to all of our participants, so they can still win their free ticket to DerbyCon. So, I managed to stumble upon a Reddit the other day. Reddit, it was r/DerbyCon, and people are just begging for tickets on there. And I'm like, you don't even know about our podcast. So I posted it on the podcast, and I got about, 50 or so more downloads, but I don't know if they were actually listening to the podcast or if that was just background noise, but I'm just amazed at the fact that people are still looking for tickets and don't know exactly where to go look for them. So, so we still have 2 tickets available, and if you want to do that for DerbyCon, you know where to find us. We're all over the place. So,
yeah, and if back to PowerShell.
Yeah,
and if you're not logging PowerShell, you're in a bad place. You need to start.
Oh yeah,
right, and alerting on PowerShell.
Just the fact that it's being used, or what's being used?
Just the fact that it could be used, right?
Okay.
By default, it's not logged at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so you have no idea, like they talked about last week. You're not going to know that they're completely owning your system with PowerShell.
Yeah. Well, you heard Adam and them talking last week. They can invoke PowerShell without using PowerShell.
Yeah, but that can still be logged.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So
Yep. Just go to the Windows logging cheat sheet. You'll see the PowerShell logging cheat sheet, and it'll tell you all about how to log PowerShell.
okay.
Even the super secret invoking PowerShell without running PowerShell.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, I'll have to put a link to that in the show notes to make sure that everybody can get a hold of that. Because it seems like that would be an incident response control or something you'd want to put in to make sure that you're logging those things so that when box X gets hacked, you can go and look through the logs for those kinds of things. So
yeah, or better yet, alert on those conditions.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. In your seam, whatever you have.
Yep. So when are you going on vacation?
I'm leaving after work on Friday.
Holy cow. Okay, so that would be Friday would have been the 8th, which would be the 8th. We recorded this on the 7th, so July 8th, you're going to be out. So you got to go pack, don't you?
I got to go pack.
Okay.
Yes. I got to be ready to go before tomorrow morning.
Well, I think we're going to cut it a little short this week because...
Really? You don't want to talk about Mac malware? Come on, man.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to do any news. I actually thought that one was kind of interesting. I was scouring the internets. I have a newfound respect for the podcasts that do the news of the week because it is often hard to find, decent enough news to talk about. But the one thing that got me, and I actually found out about a piece of software I didn't know about. It's called Platypus. Platypus is an application you can download in OS X that will take a shell script, a Python script, a Perl script, basically anything, and turn it into an application file or a DMG file that you can just install on your system. And I don't know why all of a sudden this malware became such a big deal, but there's this application called EasyDocConverter.app. And I assume the premise behind EasyDoc is that it allows you to convert documents or files of some type. I didn't download it because apparently it's filled with the malware called Eleanor. And it's interesting malware because it uses Tor to obtain full access to systems. But I don't know why people on a Mac would need to use a document converter anyway. Because LibreOffice will open any Office file. Office for Mac isn't overly expensive. You can use Google Docs or Google to open your doc files. PDF, you can edit the PDFs inside natively on Mac, so I'm not sure why they need it. But yeah, so the malware uses a Tor hidden service, and it connects, the attacker connects to a backdoor on the infected machine via a Tor generated address. So I'm assuming it's like a .onion address. So the malware infects your machine. Your computer then gets a .onion address, which can then be used to, do things. So the attacker takes over the infected machine, and it uses a browser-based authenticated control panel. So they've gotten fancy enough that they just go to your .onion page on your computer, and they can take over your box. So it's pretty fancy.
It is fancy. Wow. Isn't Mac kind of like a fancy Linux on a fancy?
Don't get me started on that. Don't
okay.
get me started on that. The whole idea was
like GNOME.
Yeah, Mac. The Mac kernel is called the mock kernel, and it is, from what everybody says, it's a heavily modified FreeBSD kernel that they used, and it's a little interesting. It's supposed to be based on BSD. The open source version of OS X is called Darwin, which is a BSD derivative. But yeah, it's crazy and it's complicated. And, there's people out there like, oh yeah, Darwin is the best, whatever. So anyway, yeah, it's a BSD like malware, but I think there's enough of OS X that has been changed that it's no longer can be considered a BSD derivative. But that's just me. So the only other thing I would say about the malware in it is the converter app is not signed. The fake one is not signed by Apple. So apparently there's a legit version and then there's a fake version. So that's nothing new though. I mean, they've been creating, fake versions of, putty and, or malware infected versions of putty or, those things for years. So,
right.
Yeah. So
I saw one the other day. It was, what is the FTP program that people like to download and use?
FTP?
No, it's an app.
I don't know. I use FileZilla.
FileZilla.
I use WinSCP. I don't know of a famous FTP program. There's TerraTerm.
That's it. It's FileZilla, but this malware is called FTPZilla.
FTPZilla. Okay.
Yes, FTPZilla. Yeah, don't use FTPZilla, please.
Yeah, definitely. That's speaking of things that look alike but are different. I got into it with one of my friends on Facebook because I had gotten a fish, very unsuccessful fish, by the way, from USAA, which here in the States is they do banking, insurance, predominantly started for military families and people in the United States military. And it was a fairly decent looking, the language was correct, and everything. And I'm not a USAA member, so I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I know it's not, it's probably some crap. But the way it was showing itself in Google, you could tell at the bottom of the page, it was like www.your-account/USAA, and I was looking at that and I'm like, who's gonna fall for that? And then I'm like, there are a lot of people out there. Even after I posted on my Facebook, oh man, I'll have to let people know. And I was like, how many people are actually going to click on those links to go to the website, which is probably set up using something like SET or the social engineering toolkit, and they're going to log in using those links on those pages. So I don't see it.
Was it a credential harvester?
I don't know. I didn't click on the link because I'm not I wasn't a USAA member. So the first thing I did was I posted something on Twitter saying, hey, USAA, I've got this thing. And I took a screenshot of it. And they're like, oh yeah, email abuse at. And I was like, okay, cool. So I sent it to abuse at. And, I posted it on my Facebook and told, everybody, because I have a lot of people that I'm still friends with who are in the Navy or retired. And I said, hey, be careful of this. If you get something like this, I know a lot of people use USAA. And the other thing was that the email was like something at .bk.ru, and I was like, oh, okay, well that's definitely fake then. What I just the easy thing I tell people is don't click on the links. Go to the browser independently and go to usaa.com. Or, if you've really got an issue, you can still pick up the phone and call these people and find out if there's actually an issue with your account. There should be no reason why you're clicking on a link inside an email these days, even if it is a legit email. I would actually suggest companies that send out emails like this don't even put links in emails. And the other thing they like to do is when they have the unsubscribe link at the bottom of the email, which I've been told is like the best vector if you're phishing somebody, because they get tired of all the junk mail and they're like, oh, I'll just unsubscribe. And then you put your email or whatever in there, hey, log in, to opt out of the emails, and then you're still owned anyway. So I don't know. I just think that you should be, training your people to look for simple things like this, just the domain on an email, or to not click the unsubscribe, just send it to your IT admin who will block it from their email they'll tar pit it in their own email system if it gets through, or I don't know. That was my rant, but it was something that bothered me because I was sitting here, talking to people on Facebook, and they're like, "Oh, I don't click on that stuff anyway." I'm like, "Yeah, but would you have clicked on it had somebody not told you that it was bad?" Because I think everybody can be fished with the right carrot. Anybody can be gotten, even myself.
Agree.
Even myself. So I mean, I always like to keep a critical eye there. And I think we've talked about this with Miss Megan, Miss Totenkopf. It's like, 9:00 in the morning. Are you really thinking clearly? If they get you at the right time of day, or they get you with the right wording or something like that, or, if you actually get a fish from a company like the Pandora stuff that came out, a lot of people thought that was a fish, we changed your passwords because we noticed your email was used in LinkedIn breach. It was found in the LinkedIn breach on Troy Hunt's site. Click here to update your password. And I'm like, I ain't clicking on that. So I was I had to go to Pandora.com, and I logged in, separately. And yeah, it was actually a legit thing. But yeah, I was like, I ain't clicking on a link in a freaking email that looks like that. One, I thought my account had been disabled 4 years ago, which in fact it had not. So I still had the free account. But yeah, I mean, some companies don't do enough to educate, but other companies don't do enough to make it so that their emails don't look fish-like. It would be
when I did some awareness training in a document, right? I created this PDF with all these things like, hey, just like tips, right? Tips. Keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so it was in a PDF form, right? To have it printed out and distributed. And I was like, well, I'll send an electronic copy too. And my boss was like, we don't want to send emails with attachments from the security team, and not a good idea. And I was like, oh yeah, good call.
Don't get them in the habit of clicking on something from the security team, because you never know if it's going to be legit. Yeah.
Dude, I'm with you. I think that everybody, no matter how security educated you are, I mean, those funny cat videos cross the human threshold, dude. And it just, sometimes it works, and you got to be prepared for it, right?
Yep.
Hey, software restriction policies, man.
That is a true. That is a lot of the time. Yeah,
a lot of the time, this commodity malware, man. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I think we probably need to cut it, because you got to go pack, and because you're out next week, we are going to have a guest again. I don't want to jinx myself. But
you'll be sitting there by yourself now.
Oh, God,
you'll be like, hey, Brian, what do you think of this? Well, Brian, I think.
I'm just imagining myself on a video doing, like, me looking to the left, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm turning to the right, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So, yeah.
That might be what it comes down to. So,
well, this person has told me that they are solid for next week. So, barring any emergencies, because that's, that happens.
If this person falls down the stairs, you'll be turning to the left and turning to the right.
Yeah. I don't want to be, but yeah.
All right, man.
So, Mr. Boettcher, oh, by the way, congratulations. While you were at Sands, we found out you and Mr. Goff are going to be at Black Hat this year, highlighting LogMD at Arsenal. That's very, very exciting for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to be acknowledged that way. So we'll see how it goes.
Right on.
Some of our friends and colleagues have showcased some tools at Arsenal, and some have been on this podcast. I don't want to mention their names or whatever, embarrass them, but yeah, they said that they got really great feedback. So
excellent.
Hey,
Nice.
That's all I'm hoping for, man.
Very cool. All right. So how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to congratulate you on, Arsenal, or just to, talk about incident response stuff?
Twitter. That's where it's at, man. At Boettcherpwned. BOETTCHERPWNED.
Very cool. All right. So you can find me on Twitter as well. I'm at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. The official podcast Twitter is at Brakesec, BRAKESEC, Brakesec. We're on Facebook. You can hit us up on our Facebook page, Breaking Down Sec, all spelled correctly or incorrectly, depending on your point of view. So we're on iTunes. I found out how to figure out where our ratings were the other day on iTunes. We're like 143rd out of 200 in the education or the tech news podcast. So that's pretty cool.
Cool.
Well, yeah, but I mean, so we get half of our downloads roughly from iTunes, and we only have a handful of feedback. So I'd really like to see if we can get going a little higher, maybe even closer to the defensive security.
I'll turn my script up.
Look, I'm never the lead dog, so the view never changes. So I understand that. We're always going to be looking at their but so yeah, if you download this on iTunes, we'd love some feedback. If you can, get us some feedback on there. So I upgraded our SoundCloud account, so you can find us on SoundCloud now. Full downloads are available. The last 4 or 5, I think, are on there. We're also on the TuneIn Radio app. We're on Stitcher. We're on Player FM. We're also in the Google Play Store. So if you are not an i fan, you can get us. You can be a Google fan, a Fandroid. So you can get us on the Google Play Store. You can look there. So, and lastly, we're on Gmail. You can get us on our email account, bds.podcast@gmail.com. If you want to, pitch an idea to us, that's great too. You could do that. And or give us some feedback that way too. I had one lady tell us that she learns a whole lot from our podcast, and that some of our previous talks with people like Miss Kim Green was quite enlightening, and it opened a dialogue outside of the podcast. So it was really great to hear that. So. Okay, so before we go, thanks to our patrons. If you want to leave us something in the tip jar, $1 a month or whatever, you can hit us up on Patreon. We're available there. So, Mr. Boettcher, enjoy your vacation. Where are you going?
Colorado.
Colorado? What are you going there for?
Not dope, I'll tell you that.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I guess in the state of Texas, you still do drug testing, so yeah, that's a thing. What are you doing, like Pikes Peak, or gonna go visit the Broncos Stadium? Ugh.
The donks, huh? That's
donks.
What you call them?
Yeah, freaking donks.
No, we're gonna go to national parks in Colorado. Very nice. Beautiful.
Very nice. Beautiful. I think Northwest Colorado and Wyoming are expecting some more snow this weekend. I know the snow levels are going to get down to about 6,500 feet up here, so that's 2,000 meters, give or take. So yeah, that's 2,000, 2,500 meters. Yeah, it's going to get cold up in the mountains up here at least. So I mean, you may be looking at some snow, so be careful. You're driving?
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. You and how about like 4 kids and your wife? Man. Okay. Well, drive carefully, please. Don't speed, and be careful driving, because I want you back in a couple of weeks. So,
me too.
Yeah, that makes 2 of us. So that was it for this.
Never speed.
You never speed.
Never speed.
That's
unconscionable.
That is a false statement you made, sir. It's a false statement. All right. Well, that was it for Breaking Down Security this week. Have a great week. We will talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.